In this video, we're going to continue with pivot tables. We'll talk about how to group fields, specifically date fields, so we can see the information by month or year or quarter. We're also going to add a calculated field to our pivot table, and then we'll get into formatting them a little bit, how to turn on and off subtotals and grand totals. We'll be formatting with a style, and then also adding a slicer as a way to filter a pivot table. And then finally, we'll create a pivot chart based on the data in this table. So looking at the data, we've got a region, or several regions. I think it's 4 or 5 regions. And then we're selling a product. We have an order date and a ship date. And then I think I have 21 different customers, the quantity purchased, the revenue, and the cost of goods sold. So just to start with the business question, maybe we'll take a look at our average revenue by product by month. So I'll just click anywhere in the data, and then I'll run to the Insert tab, and we'll go to Pivot Table, and it's guessing the range of our data between A1 and H10,000. So we have a lot of records here. And I'm good with that, and so we'll hit OK, and it's going to put it in a new worksheet. And now, of course, we have our pivot table fields pane to the right, and then the report area to the left. As I mentioned, I want to take a look at our average revenue by month. And so I'm going to take the order date and move it down to rows. And then I will put the revenue in the values area. So the revenue is a numeric field. I can put it in values. It defaults to sum. I think I wanted it by month by product, actually. So I'm going to put the product over here in the columns section. So these are our different products, and here are the years or the order dates. Now, to immediately group the data, so I'll select in here, and notice under the Analyze ribbon of our pivot table tools, we have this group and ungroup and the group field. If I ungroup, I have the individual days of all of our orders, and now I can choose to group this selection or group the field, doesn't matter. And up comes this box, and it says, all right, your data is running from 1/2 to 2013 to 1/2 of 2016. How do you want to group it? And if I just say months, it's going to put everything in January through December. It doesn't care about the year. And maybe that's what you want. You're trying to look at your sales in a seasonal kind of fashion. So how do we do in January on dark lagers versus English pale ales? Or you may decide, no, actually I want year and month. So I'll select month, and you can click on years, and both of them will be selected. And look what that does. When I hit OK, now I have, here's my year, the 12 months, obviously 2014 in the 12 months, 2015 in the 12 months. You can choose to do, maybe months is too fine of a detail. I'm good with quarters. So now I have my year and the 4 quarters in each year. Now, I am looking at the sum of revenue. I guess my original question was, what is our average revenue? So to change that, I click here, and then under the Analyze, here's our field settings, and I can jump into where we have sum, just change that to average, hit OK. And now we have our average revenue. Seeing 5 decimal places is probably not necessary, so I should have, while I was in here, go to number, format. This is revenue, so I can go accounting. I'll leave it at 2 decimals, hit OK, and now we have the accounting format. Changing up our pivot table, let's answer the question, how much revenue by customer? And then we're going to add a calculated field of total profit by customer. So to start over, if you will, I will just unselect the fields that are currently selected, and now we end up with our report area. I will switch it up. We're going to put customers in the rows, so we have 21 different customers. And now I can put revenue in the values. So this is the total revenue that we've generated by customer. So I can, if I want to format, go value field settings, we'll make that an accounting format. And now if I want to know what is the profit we're getting by customer, I can add a calculated field, because profit isn't one of the fields in our data, right? I have the revenue and the cost of goods sold, but I need to subtract those two in order to get profit. So running over here, I can do that in my pivot table. So again, under the Analyze ribbon, under calculations right here, I can add a calculated field. Up will come this dialog box and goes, well, what do you want to call this? And so profit makes sense. But now here in the formula where it says equals 0, I can type my calculation. A lot of times it's based on fields that already exist, and so then I can just double click on those fields, which is a good idea, because then you don't have to worry about mistyping them and not getting your syntax right. So what's the profit? It is going to be the revenue. So I double clicked minus, and I will double click on cost of goods sold, and notice it put that in single quotes, and that's because of the spaces. That's why I recommend not typing these and just double clicking and letting Excel fill them in the way it likes. So now I can hit OK on that, and now we have the sum of our profit by these our customers. If I want to add more level of detail to this chart, maybe I want to take this product field and move it to the top of the columns. What happened here? Click and drag, I'll move it to the top, and now I have the logger, dark logger. Here's the revenue and the profit by these clubs. Here's the English Pale Ale. I actually prefer that the sum of the revenue and the profit, those column headings, show up over here in the rows. And so in order to make that happen, I will grab this sigma values item in columns and move it to rows, and so it looks like this. Now on the columns for each one, I simply have my products, and now I can look at, okay, how much revenue did we generate and how much profit for dark lager, this particular club. If you ever want to turn off a calculated field, of course right here I have profit is brand new in my list of fields over here in the field pane. I can click on that and the profit goes away. If I don't want that calculated field even to show up here, I can go back under Analyze, Field Items, Calculated Field. Right here it says Field 1, but hidden beneath that, if you hit this drop down arrow, is our calculated field, profit. And now I can hit Delete, OK, and now that whole calculated field is gone from the pivot table. Be easy enough to recreate, but it's gone for now. So moving on to demonstrate the next couple of points on formatting a pivot table, adding subtotals, grand totals, changing the outline or how the pivot table looks. I'm going to change it up one more time. This time we'll leave our customers here. Across the top, we're going to put our regions, right? Each of these customers exists in our 5 different regions. And we'll go ahead and leave it as a sum of revenue, but then we'll be able to play with subtotals and totals. So I'm going to turn off the product. I don't need that. And across the top, I will put our regions. So now I have Central, East, North, South, West. I have our customers, but I want to see this by the year. So Ace of Clubs, how much revenue are we generating in each of the 4 years I think we have in our data set? So I am going to grab the order date, and I will put that in the rows area. Now, of course, it's showing collapsed what we had set up originally, which was the years and the quarters, which is fine. I can do that. It leaves a little plus sign where I can open those. But if I truly just wanted the years, I can also go run up to my group field and say, you know what, get rid of the quarters, let's just do years. So I hit OK, and now I have the Ace of Clubs and our 4 years. This club only has 3 years. This club has 4 years. So now, in terms of formatting under the design, of course you have these pivot table styles, just like we have table styles. So I can choose any one of these styles to make it look, colorize it basically. And at the same time, you can band the rows, which puts a border there, or band the columns, which separates those with the borders. That looks nice. Under the design ribbon, you also have these layout fields. Now, subtotals. Notice, because I have years here, there's a subtotal at the top for Ace of Clubs all 4 years. If I were to add up those numbers, it should equal that value right there. You can choose to turn those on or off. So if I say do not show subtotals, that light blue row went blank because I turned them off. The other choice on that is to show the subtotals at the bottom of the group instead of at the top. So now it added an extra row at the bottom, putting the subtotals down there. So that's subtotals. The other one is grand totals. So over here on the right, I have a grand total for each year. And then at the very bottom, I'll have a grand total for each region. So East, West, Central, or whatever the regions are. So you can choose right here to show those or not. I can say I only want them for the columns or the rows. I can turn that off, which then gives me the grand total for each row. But if I were to scroll down, then, whoops, too far down, I don't have a grand total at the bottom. So anyway, back here under design, I will turn on for rows and columns. And finally, the next button we'll play with here is called Report Layout. Basically, right now we're in compact form, so my customers right here and the years are right below it in the same column. It's all column A. There is another form called Outline, and what that does is move the year over to column B. So I have my customer in A and this in B. That's the Outline form. Don't know if it makes a whole lot of difference. It might in some cases. So if I go back to compact, it puts it all into one column again. And finally, one more thing I'll show you while we're right in this view is it has more to do with analyzing the data than it is the formatting of the data. But back when we were doing field settings, right, I got one column, sum of revenue, or one, I guess it's one column in our values area. When I go to field settings, right now we're summing the revenue. There's a tab right here that says show value as, and it says no calculation. If I hit this drop down, I can say, and then we'll do this one first, as a percent of the row total. So here's what that's going to do. Rather than see these actual numbers of our revenue by customer by year, it's going to replace them with percentages. And because I said of the row total, it's going to say basically like Central Asa Clubs, the central region has been 20% of the total sales for that year. On the east, maybe it was 15% of the total sales. So let me hit OK, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, I said by row, so you read across this way, and what I'm seeing is that Central was 16.68, East was 18.72, North 25.07, etc. And I can do that for each year and for each of my customers. If I wanted to see which region was the biggest contributor to the revenue for that club. All right, same time, instead of as a percentage of the row total, I could do it as a percentage of the column total. So now we're going down. So for the central region, which year was the biggest contribution across all of our clubs, right? So basically my 100%'s down here, and here's somebody that's at 1.99. That seems to be, there's a couple, our biggest contribution. Oh, here we go, the Crow's Nest in 2013 and 14 for the central region. So that was going down across the column. So just another way to look at your data. Rather than the actual values, I could see it as a percentage of values. And there's a few other choices you can look at in here too. If I go back to no calculation, then we'll simply be summing the revenues as we had before. In the previous video, I talked about the filter. I can say, for instance, grab my product and put it down here under filter. Right now I'm seeing the numbers for all of our products, but I can just say, okay, let's just look at the dark logger across all of our businesses by year. Right now there's a graphical way. I'm going to close my field pane here, which, by the way, if I want to turn it back on, is this field list button up here in the ribbon, but I'll close it. There's a graphical way to add a filter, and that is if I run to the Analyze ribbon right here, Insert Slicer. And so if I want to, I'll grab this product slicer, put it here. And when you add a slicer, it has its own ribbon. And now I can format the slicer with the slicer style. There's some sizing options for this thing. And then I'm going to go turn off the filter. So I need my field panes again. So let me run and get those back on. I'm going to take this filter off of there, and I'm just going to use the slicer. So now when everything's selected, that means all of these different products are involved with the numbers I'm seeing calculated. I can just choose one. There's my dark logger, but I can also hold down the control key and maybe choose those three. So now I'm looking at the logger, the pale ale, and the porter, and then this will automatically calculate the values based on that selection. You can also, I'll just click on one again, hold down the shift key, and then grab continuous one. So now I have these three. The other thing I'll mention about the slicer is I keep making one pivot table and changing it around to demonstrate the things I want to demonstrate, but I can actually have multiple pivot tables, and then I can make this slicer operate on multiple pivot tables. So when I click on the slicer again, here it has its own ribbon. One of the things here is report connection. And so then I can say, well, this slicer will filter data for more than one pivot table when I select that. All right, so now let's talk about creating a pivot chart. In order to do that, I'm going to try to get the data down to something that's a little easier to chart. I think what I'm going to do is take away my clubs, and then we'll just have revenue by year. So I'm going to open up my field list. I'll go to the Analyze, hit Field List. I'm just going to pull the customer off the rows. There we have it. So now I have by region, by year. Don't forget I am filtered, if you will, on 3 different products. But on the Analyze ribbon, we have pivot chart. And so I can just click on that. It's just like charting with regular Excel data in that you have available to you all the different kinds of charts. It's guessing that right now a clustered column chart might be the best. So I can hit OK on that. And now we have a pivot chart, and guess what? It has its own ribbon, and it's exactly like the ribbons of the regular charting in that I can change the design, switch row column. It has all of the add chart elements, all the things you're used to with regular Excel charts. So I'm not going to go into that very much. When you create a pivot chart, it leaves these field buttons here, and notice 2016 is not very big yet because we aren't very far into the year. I can turn that off, so I can get rid of both of those selections, hit OK, and now I'm just looking at 13, 14, and 15 at this point. I can choose to only look at a couple different regions in my chart right there. So I've just now Central and East, and notice the pivot table also reflects that change. If I want to see them all again, I hit Select All. And the last thing I'll mention on charting is sometimes you only want to see the chart, and I don't need these filtering or these buttons that allow me to make selections. I want to turn all those off. So a couple ways to do it. One is you can right click on these buttons, and there's right here, hide all the field buttons on the chart. And that same choice is also available under Analyze, Field Buttons, and right here is Hide All. So if I click on that, well, now I just have the chart. And so if I were to print it or something, I don't want to see those buttons on there. Otherwise, again, I'm not going to go into it very much because all of the formatting, design, and analyze buttons on the chart, or I should just say design and format, are similar to what you see on the chart tools for regular Excel data. So that's it for this video. Just real quick to recap, basically what we're looking at is on this pivot table, which I've just selected behind the chart. Whoops, I'll move the chart. Under the design ribbons where we stylize, we can add borders, and then right here is where you turn on and off subtotals, grand totals, and you can change it from compact to outline layout, moving it from 1 or 2 columns. And then don't forget under Analyze, I can, if you're missing your field list, it's right here. Right here is where I do my calculated fields. So if I want to do some kind of calculations that don't normally exist in the regular data, I can add that right there. And rather than using the filter field right here on our field pane list, I can add a slicer and make it a more graphical interface for filtering that data. Also, field settings, you do have the choice that rather than seeing the numbers, I can see them as a percentage of either a row or a column total. And that's it. Thanks for watching.